You wake up in a ditch, not metaphorically, an actual ditch, filled with mud and something you decide not to identify. Above you, a sky that is slightly too purple to be Earth's. 2 moons. You count them twice. You are in another world. You wait for a system prompt to appear. Nothing. You wait for a glowing status screen. Nothing. You check your hands for hidden talent marks. Your hands look exactly like your hands. A farmer finds you an hour later. He speaks a language you shouldn't understand but somehow do. He decides you're lost. He's not wrong. The first village takes you in. They feed you, ask you questions you can't fully answer, point you toward a guild in the next town over. On the 3rd day, you sit through a talent assessment. The crystal doesn't glow. The elder frowns. The other recruits look away. One of them laughs quietly, the kind that isn't meant to carry, but does. The assessor hands you a pamphlet about civilian labor opportunities in the area. You take it because there is no good reason not to. No mana, no affinity, no aptitude for anything measurable in this world. You spend your first week learning what that means. Adventurers here hit harder than physics should allow. Mages reshape reality from memory. Even the weakest guild recruit can outrun you and outlift you and outfight you with one hand. You were slower than everyone, weaker than everyone. In a world built entirely on power you have none of, you were completely, measurably useless. On the 9th night, you stop feeling sorry about it and start thinking. You know how a gun works. Not from experience, from curiosity. The kind that kept you reading late into the night about mechanisms and tolerances and barrel rifling while your roommate told you to go to sleep. You were not a gunsmith. You were not even close. But you understand the concept. And in a world where no one has ever seen one, concept is enough to start. You find work at a blacksmith's. Low wages, long hours, and a smith who asks fewer questions than most. You carry coal and sweep floors and watch. You ask questions that seem strange until the smith decides you're just obsessive, which he respects. You start handling materials. Start learning what this world's metals can and can't do. Months pass. You make mistakes, dozens of them. A barrel that can't hold pressure. A firing mechanism that won't reset. A frame that cracks under the first test load. Cartridge casings that split. Powder blends that burn too slow or too fast or unevenly in the chamber. You start over more times than you count. You spend a full month on the cartridge alone, the powder blend, the seating depth, the primer equivalent. There are nights where you consider stopping. Not dramatically, just the quiet way a person sets something down and forgets to pick it up again. You don't. You go back to the workbench. Nobody knows what you're building. That's intentional. The night you first fire it, you are alone in a field 2 hours outside town. Your hands are shaking, not from fear, from the specific anxiety of finding out whether the last 8 months of your life made something real or made something that blows your hand off. You aim at a tree. You breathe. You pull the trigger. The crack is wrong, too sharp, too loud. Nothing in this world sounds like it. A bird that wasn't a bird launches from the grass 50 meters away and does not come back. Somewhere in the far distance, something larger moves through the tree line and doesn't stop moving until it's gone. You look at the hole in the tree. Clean entry, 20 meters. You do it again. Again. You sit down in the grass and stay there for a long time. You're not a mage. You're not a warrior. You are a person from a world that spent 300 years perfecting the delivery of small, fast pieces of metal, and you brought that knowledge here, into a world that has never once thought to ask whether there is a faster way to put a hole in something than swinging a sword at it. The answer is yes. The answer has always been yes. The guild doesn't know what to do with you at first. You bring back a B-rank mark with 1 shot. No drawn-out fight, no dramatic technique, no mana expenditure. Just distance, angle, and understanding. The examiner writes method unknown on your report form and looks at you for a long moment before stamping it. You let him look. Word spreads the way word does. The Thundercrafter, the one who fights without touching. By the time 3 more months have passed, you are uncomfortable to be around. Not because you are frightening, but because nobody understands what you are. And that makes people cautious in ways that feel like respect, but aren't quite. You improve the design. Tighter tolerances, better grip, a longer barrel for distance work, a shorter one for close quarters. You think about the reload problem and solve it in the way that takes 2 weeks of failed attempts and 1 sleepless night that ends with you laughing alone at your workbench because it finally works. A noble house sends for you. They want demonstrations. You are polite. You decline. They send again with a larger number. You decline again. They send soldiers the 3rd time. You are not surprised. You'd been expecting it since the 2nd message. You make it clear once, without hurting anyone, that this is not a path they want to continue down. The soldiers return to the capital with a very specific account of what happened in that courtyard. The noble house stops sending messages. 2 years in, you are not the strongest person in this world, not even close. There are mages who could end you without effort, and warriors whose bodies are built from something closer to myth than muscle. You know this. You have known it since the 1st week. You stopped caring about the comparison a long time ago. What you have is this, a thing that works, that you built from nothing in a world where it had never existed. No inheritance, no talent, no master who saw your potential and decided to invest. Just months of failure and a concept you refuse to let go of. That is its own category. It doesn't need to win against everything. It doesn't need to be the strongest or the fastest or the most elegant. It just needs to be real. You sit in the smithy on a slow afternoon, breaking the mechanism down the way you always do, checking tolerances the way you always do. The apprentice has been watching from across the room for weeks, longer than he realizes. Today, he finally asks. You set the frame on the workbench. You think about saying no. You think about what no would protect. Then you think about a late night, a textbook, a roommate telling you to go to sleep. You tell him to pull up a stool.